The three German shepherds burst through Karen Whitmore's front door like fury incarnate, their barks echoing across Willowbrook Estates as HOA President Jim Morrison dove behind his pristine Honda Civic, his clipboard scattered across the manicured lawn, violation notices fluttering like confetti in the morning breeze. "You want to measure my mailbox height again, Jim?" Karen bellowed from her doorway, still clutching the leashes she deliberately dropped. "Here's your measuring committee." 20 minutes earlier, Karen had been sipping her third cup of coffee when she spotted Jim's car creeping down Maple Lane like a predator stalking prey. She'd watched and photographed Mrs. Chen's slightly faded fence, document the Johnsons' unauthorized wind chimes, and now he was approaching her property with that smug expression she'd grown to despise. For 18 months, Karen had endured the HOA's increasingly ridiculous demands. First, they'd cited her for her mailbox being 2 inches too high. Then came the violation for her non-conforming garden gnomes. Last week, they'd actually fined her for hanging her American flag at a non-regulation angle. But this morning's notice was the breaking point. Violation number 47B. Excessive dog barking between hours of 6 o'clock 6:15 a.m. Her dogs hadn't even been outside during those times. "Karen, call off your dogs," June shouted, his usually commanding voice cracking as Max, Duke, and Princess circled his hiding spot. The dogs weren't actually aggressive. They were more curious than threatening. But Jim didn't know that. Maybe if you'd spent less time harassing homeowners and more time actually reading HOA bylaws, you'd know that pets are allowed to investigate potential trespassers. Karen called back, air quoting dramatically. She'd memorized every loophole in their ridiculous covenant after her first violation. Mrs. Patterson from next door peeked through her curtains, phone already in hand. Within minutes, Karen's phone buzzed with texts from the neighborhood group chat. OMG, Karen just unleashed hell, and Jim's literally crying behind his car. The irony wasn't lost on Karen. For months, she played by their rules, paid their fines, even repainted her shutters the approved colonial cream shade. She'd been the model resident, the kindergarten teacher who volunteered for every committee and baked cookies for every fundraiser. But respect was apparently a one-way street in Willowbrook Estates. "All right, boys, that's enough," Karen finally called. The dogs immediately returned to her side, tails wagging. Jim slowly emerged from behind his car, his perfectly pressed khakis now sporting grass stains, and his HOA badge hanging askew. "This isn't over, Karen," he threatened, gathering his scattered papers. "The board will hear about this." "I'm counting on it," Karen replied, a dangerous smile playing on her lips. She had plans for that board meeting. Plans that would shake Willowbrook Estates to its manicured foundation. As Jim drove away, Karen didn't feel the satisfaction she'd expected. Instead, a cold determination settled in her chest. They'd pushed the wrong suburban mom too far. By Monday morning, Willowbrook Estates resembled a war zone. Jim Morrison's house had a for sale sign sprouting from his formerly perfect lawn. Janet Kowalski was mysteriously visiting family out of state, and Channel 7's news van had become a permanent fixture at the community center. Karen stood at her kitchen window, watching reporter Sarah Chen interview the Williamses about their HOA harassment. Her phone hadn't stopped buzzing since Friday interview requests, legal consultations, and surprisingly, job offers. Apparently, her methodical dismantling of the board had impressed several law firms specializing in HOA disputes. "Mrs. Whitmore," Emma appeared in the doorway, holding an official-looking envelope. This came certified mail. Karen recognized the law firm's letterhead immediately, the same firm the HOA had threatened to sic on her 6 months ago. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it, expecting a lawsuit. Instead, she found a job offer. "Dear Mrs. Whitmore, our firm has been retained by the Willowbrook Estates HOA to conduct a complete audit and reorganization following recent revelations. Given your demonstrated expertise in HOA law and community organization, we would like to offer you the position of interim community manager." The salary figure made her gasp. It was 3 times what she'd made teaching kindergarten. "Mom," Emma peered at the letter. "Holy crap, They want to pay you how much to fix the neighborhood. Before Karen could respond, her doorbell rang. Through the peephole, she saw Mrs. Patterson holding a casserole dish, with a line of neighbors stretching behind her. "We wanted to thank you," Mrs. Patterson said when Karen opened the door, "and to ask, would you consider running for HOA president?" The irony was delicious. 6 months ago, they'd all watched silently as the board persecuted her. Now they wanted her to save them. "I'll consider it," Karen said carefully. But things would be different. No more harassment. No more selective enforcement. Real transparency. "Yes," several voices chorused. As the impromptu victory celebration unfolded on her lawn, Karen felt a complicated mix of satisfaction and unease. She'd won the war, but wars always had casualties. Jim might have been a tyrant, but he was also someone's father, someone's husband. His life was imploding on the evening news. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You may have won this battle, but I know things about this neighborhood that would make your head spin. Congratulations, President Whitmore. You'll need all the help you can get. A friend." Karen stared at the message, a chill running down her spine. She'd assumed the corruption stopped with Jim and his cronies. But what if it went deeper? What if she'd just scratched the surface of Willowbrook Estate's secrets? As the sun set over the perfectly manicured lawns and matching mailboxes, Karen realized her victory was only the beginning. She'd wanted to fix her neighborhood's HOA problem, but now she wondered if she'd unknowingly inherited something much more dangerous. The dogs whined softly at her feet, sensing her tension. Karen reached down to pet them, her mind already working through the implications. Tomorrow, she'd start her new job. Tomorrow, she'd begin to uncover what her mysterious friend was really warning her about. But tonight, she'd celebrate. After all, it wasn't every day a kindergarten teacher brought down a corrupt HOA board with nothing but German shepherds and a very thorough PowerPoint presentation. The emergency HOA board meeting was called for Thursday evening, and Karen spent 3 days preparing like a general planning a siege. Her dining room table disappeared under stacks of legal documents, printed emails, and a detailed timeline of every interaction she'd had with the board over the past 2 years. "Mom, you're scaring me," her teenage daughter Emma said, finding Karen hunched over her laptop at 2 a.m., surrounded by empty coffee cups and highlighted papers. "I'm not scary, sweetheart. I'm thorough," Karen replied without looking up. She'd discovered something beautiful in the HOA's own records, a pattern of selective enforcement that bordered on harassment, and better yet, several board members who'd violated the same rules they cited her for. Thursday arrived gray and drizzling, perfectly matching the mood in the Willowbrook Community Center. Karen entered the packed room to find the usual suspects. Jim at the head table looking smugly confident. Board members Janet Kowalski and Robert Sterling flanking him like bookends. And about 30 neighbors scattered across folding chairs, their expressions ranging from curious to gleeful. Before we address Mrs. Whitmore's episode, Jim began, adjusting his tie. "I want to remind everyone that this association exists to maintain property values and community standards." "Point of order," Karen interrupted, standing smoothly. Every head turned toward her. She'd traded her usual casual attire for a sharp navy blazer and her grandmother's pearl necklace, armor for battle. According to the HOA Charter, Article 12, Section 4, any resident facing disciplinary action has the right to present their case before sanctions are discussed. Jim's eye twitched. "Very well. You have 5 minutes. I'll need 20. Karen moved to the front, connecting her laptop to the projector with practiced efficiency. "Because what I'm about to show you will change everything." The first slide appeared, a photo of Jim's house with his mailbox clearly visible. President Morrison's mailbox measures 47.5 inches in height. The HOA standard is 45 inches maximum. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "That's different," Jim started. Janet Kowalski's fence. Click, new photo. Faded to a shade that clearly violates the weathered oak requirement established in 2022. Janet's face reddened. Karen's presentation methodically demolished each board member's credibility. Robert Sterling's unauthorized satellite dish. Jim's dogs barking during quiet hours. She'd recorded them. Janet's holiday decorations that stayed up 2 weeks past the HOA deadline. But the coup de grace came on slide 15. Email correspondence showing board members discussing making life difficult for residents who question their authority. She'd obtained them through a public records request, perfectly legal since the HOA received municipal funding. The room erupted. Neighbors who'd suffered in silence for years suddenly found their voices. Mrs. Chen stood up, clutching her citation. They fined me $200 for a fence that's the same color as yours, Janet. This is harassment, shouted Marcus Williams, waving his own stack of violations. 3 citations in 1 week for suspicious overnight parking. My own son visiting from college. Jim pounded his gavel frantically. Order. We'll reconvene after reviewing these allegations. But Karen wasn't finished. There's one more thing. Her voice cut through the chaos like ice. I've contacted Channel 7 News. They're very interested in a story about HOA corruption, especially when it involves potential fraud in the Community Improvement Fund. The color drained from Jim's face. The fund, their secret slush fund for emergency expenses that somehow always coincided with board members' home improvements. As the meeting dissolved into chaos, Karen packed her laptop calmly. She'd lit the fuse. Now she just had to wait for the explosion.